What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Joe Culpepper Outdoors. I'm Joe Culpepper. Uh, Thank y'all so much for the support last few videos. I've been getting a lot of new subscribers, so shout out to all of you guys that have been subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. Really helps me try to keep going at this, even though I'm really not an expert on archery, just trying to work my way through my archery journey, and probably just taking you guys along is the best way to put it. But today I want to kind of talk about some differences in the Mathews V3X and the Mathews Phase 4. So of course I've got both the V3X and Phase 4 in the 33-inch options, and they both shoot really good. They're incredibly good shooting bows. But I'm going to have to go back, and I don't know if I've made this statement on this channel, but I know I've made it to some of the other people, or some of my buddies that shoot bows and everything. I used to say that I thought the Phase 433 was the superior bow, but I'm going to have to go back and amend that statement. I think the V3X is actually a better bow, and there's a few reasons for that. One really big reason, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. So if we look at the two bows side by side, this is the V3X and this is the Phase 4. The risers pretty much identical. I don't even know if there is a difference in the risers. Maybe real small differences, but nothing big. Of course, you got the bridge lock stabilizer option on your Phase 4. I don't think that shouldn't be a deal breaker for anybody. If you want to run a bridge lock stabilizer like I am, great. If you want to run a standard stabilizer, great. I don't think that matters. I like the adjustability, so I actually was able to fine tune the length on this stabilizer that fit me the best. Both are going to have bridge lock sight capabilities, and the V3X does not have a sight on it at the moment, or a bridge lock sight at the moment. It's got the CBE Tactic Hybrid. That's going to change probably this week. So really excited about that. Looking forward to getting my new sight. So this, of course, is a target-oriented bow. This is a hunting-oriented bow. Both of them are shooters. I mean, they are both phenomenal shooting bows. And I actually shoot this Phase 4 better, even though it is currently set at 75 pounds, and this one is set at 70 pounds. I know, target bow, 70 pounds. I'm crazy, right? But I shoot this Phase 4 a lot better, which is making me seriously consider putting this bow at 75 pounds just to have that back wall. Because the back wall on this Phase 4 is not as good as the V3X, but I'll get to that in a minute. Both bows, like I said, both bows shoot incredibly well. 30 yards and in, I clip fletchings like crazy with the V3X. At 70, 60 plus, this bow just really separates itself. Probably more to do with the amount of time that I've had the Phase 4, and not really anything to do with it being a just better shooting bow, because they both shoot really, really well. So I actually shot my best group at 100 yards the other day, and I'll try to figure out a way to post it to the channel so you guys can actually look at it. But I put 3 arrows in a group about this big at 100 yards. Not with the V3X, actually with the Phase 4. And I was using my back tension release instead of my standard wrist strap right here. And I will probably not shoot a group that good again for a long time. But when I shot the group and went down and looked at it, I thought, oh wow, this is crazy. How did I do that? And I got to thinking about it, and the only real difference between these bows is, one, the release that I use to shoot them. Two, this bow, the V3X, as I said, is 70 pounds, not 75. And it also has a back bar on it. So what I'm considering doing for the remainder of this year is taking this back bar off, because I just seem to shoot better without one, and then putting it back on maybe December, January, and just shooting the absolute snot out of this bow, getting ready for 3D and Vegas and that kind of stuff. But hopefully that would give me plenty of time to get used to the back bar, which is what I'm wanting to do. But if I can't shoot as good with it, then it would be more beneficial to not have the back bar. So those are just kind of my thoughts. I'm probably going to take this bow and actually set it at 75 pounds as well. Not because I'm trying to flex on anybody. You know, my target bow would be 75 pounds, not like most guys are probably 60, 65. Because there's big disadvantages for me running my bow at 75 pounds. I have to make a lot heavier arrow, and heavier arrows are generally going to be a little bit more expensive to build if you're really trying to hit that 450, 60 grain point, which I think is what I would have to do to keep under that 280 foot per second that the ASA requires. Possibly, I would possibly even have to go up to like a 475, 480 grain. So I'm not a big fan of heavier arrows, but if I shoot the bow better at 75 pounds, why would I not shoot my target bow at 75 pounds too? If I shoot it better, why not use that to give me the most advantage I can possibly give myself to be the best archer I can be, to differentiate myself from the others. And like I said, I'm not saying I'm superior because I can shoot 75 pounds on a target bow and be perfectly fine and not have shoulder pain or anything. It still gets a little agitating after I've, fired about 50, 60 shots in a day, and that 75 pounds does get a little bit harder. But I've shot the 75 on the Phase 4 so much that this 70 on the V3X is like nothing. And that's crazy how much difference 5 pounds makes. But getting to the reason, I'm sorry to get off on a little rant, but getting to the reason why I'd say the V3X is actually a better bow than the Phase 433. And this is going to probably be controversial, so I hope everyone will kind of hear me out on this. And someone had made the statement to me. It was not Jeremy. It was somebody at a different bow shop. Actually, the same bow shop that sold me the Elite. He made the statement that he thought the V3X was a better bow than the Phase 4. And now that really kind of threw me for a loop, because I had already shot the Phase 4 at that point, and I was thinking, you're crazy. The Phase 4 is a killer bow. It was absolutely insane how good that bow is. And then I got one of each. And after shooting both bows, I can tell you I would agree with that assessment that the V3X is a better bow. Now, the reason I don't say that to take anything away from the Phase 4. The Phase 4 is an incredible bow. It is extremely quiet. It's got plenty of speed. It balances really well. There's only one thing, in my opinion, that separates the V3X from the Phase 4, and that's the back wall. So to kind of prove what I'm talking about, I'm going to knock an arrow, and just to be 100% safe, or as safe as we can possibly get, I'm going to use the wrist release. So again, you have to remember that the Phase 4 is set at 75 pounds, but they're both 85% let off. So The difference in the back wall is not even a pound of weight, I don't think. I haven't done the math on it, but so let's draw back the V3X. So we get the benefits on this bow of a super solid back wall. And this one is not going to creep forward if you relax just a little bit. It's going to hold right there. And yeah, it will creep forward, but that's me almost pushing it forward to go. And like I said, this is 85% let off. This is not a crazy amount of let off, or it's not a crazy low let off or a crazy high let off. I mean, it's pretty average for a hunter. 80, 85, I'd say, are the two most common. But this one's not going to give you any jitters in the back wall, which I think is a good thing, a really good thing in a lot of ways for bow hunters and target archers alike, especially if you're like me and you have trouble sometimes keeping your tension in the back wall. And the reason that started is because I shot that Elite on 90% let off, and I've just started really relaxing on that back wall, and now I'm reaping the rewards of 90% let off now, really fighting these back walls sometimes. It's gotten a lot better, but I'm still having to work on, keeping tension. So here we got the 75-pound phase 4. And there you already see it. You see it's just jumping. It wants to come out of that back wall. And if I keep tension, we're good. But if I relax just a little bit, you see it's just wanting to go. And I understand that this is not a scientific test. And if I wanted it to be a scientific test, I would have to hook up some kind of scale to both of these bows and let that kind of tell you how much pressure you have to let off or whatever for it to actually start moving forward. And in that case, I would need to either have 75-pound mods on the V3X or 70-pound mods back on the phase 4. But even when the phase 4 was at 70 pounds, I noticed that back wall was just really, really jittery. And I heard, I like to watch or listen to the podcast that Tim Connor and Josh does. I can't remember his last name. But I really like their podcast. And that's one, that was the big complaint that Tim Connor had about the phase 4. I think he called them micro jitters in his back wall, where that bow is wanting to go forward, but it's not pulling so hard that it's going to snatch you forward, which that's a good thing. I hate a back wall that when I relax just a little bit, boom, it just takes it away from me. I would rather it kind of just, give a little bit of pull, and then I got to pull back a little bit more. But I would prefer to have a more solid back wall like the V3X has, and that's my opinion. That's the biggest difference between the two bows that I have seen so far. Is just the back wall. That is the only thing I have seen different between these two bows. And I've still got the Elite Envision right now. Been trying to sell it. And I'm not going to try to trash Elite. But you guys know that I try to be honest with you guys. And I hope you understand, and I think you guys really do understand. I'm not trying to bash any companies. I'm telling you my opinions and my experiences with companies. And the Elite Envision is a shooter. It really is. It's a great shooting bow, especially especially once you put a good stabilizer on there that takes the shock out of it, because that bow has got more hand shock than I think just about any other bow I've ever shot. I mean, it's crazy how much shock that bow has. But the back wall on it, and it's probably partially, if not mostly, due to my draw length. So both of these Mathews are set at 29.5 inches. I was shooting the Envision last year at 30, and from 29.5 up to, or 29.25, I had to go up to 30, and the back wall was just abysmal. There's a big hump that you have to pull over to get into that back wall. And then if you relax just a little bit, boom, it takes off. And to me, that's not the kind of bow that I want to hunt with, because in a high pressure situation, you don't do everything right every time. And all it's going to take is you to just get a little too excited and forget to keep pulling in your back wall, and boom, you let down. Your arrow may go flying, and that deer knows that you're there, and he blows, or an elk, whatever it is that you're hunting, and then your whole hunt is ruined because of your back wall. And I know back wall on this V3X is not as big of a deal because it is a target. I'm building it to be more of a target-oriented bow, but I still like I like a solid back wall that I don't have to pull over any humps. So let me actually grab the Envision real quick. So, yes, I did tie a little ridiculous D-loop on here. I was going to play with this bow some, but I don't think it's worth me messing with. So anyways, this bow is set at 80% let off and 70 pounds, of course, 30 inches. Yes, 30 inches. And I'm just going to let you guys see the draw cycle on this bow compared to the others. So very likely, if you watch me draw back these other bows, it's very smooth. It's a fluid motion. But this one, and you hear it when it locks into that back wall. You see, just a little bit, and it's gone. I wasn't even trying to let down there. That's legit. That's what happened. So that's why I don't like this back wall on this bow. And part of the reason I don't like this bow in general, the draw cycle on it just doesn't compare. It's super stacked in the front end, but it doesn't really let off even in the back end of the draw cycle. Now, once you're in the back wall, this is probably one of the most stable bows I've ever shot. And I try to give credit where credit is due. Even though I'm not an elite guy, I believe Elite brings a target-oriented perspective to each and every bow they produce, whether it is their Verdict, which is their target bow, or it's their Elite Ethos, which is their flagship for this year, even back to this bow, the Envision. The stability that Elite has with their bows is phenomenal. So I will give credit on that. They do a great job on stability. But the draw cycle on this Envision at 30 inches of draw length is lacking. And like I said, I'm not trying to bash them because I don't even know if they still make this bow. If you go on their website, it's still on there, and it's still, I guess, for sale. If you have a 28-inch, 29-inch draw length, I would definitely say that this is a good bow to look at. But if you're in that higher 29.5, 30-plus inch draw, like me, at 30 inches on pretty much everything but Mathews. I know that sounds funny, but that's the truth. Mathews, I shoot 29.5. Everything else, I shoot 30. But anyways, if you've got those longer draw lengths, over 29.5, I recommend that you go up to this 33-inch bow, just so the draw cycle will be better, the bow will fit you a little bit better. And I've only had a couple months with a bow under 31 inches axle to axle. That was the Dart and Consequence. Do I miss that bow? Yes, I do. And do I think that was an absolutely phenomenal bow? Absolutely. It was a great bow. But it also gave me so many problems, it wasn't worth me continuing to have a bow that I have to work on all the time. And that's why I traded it for the V3X. I made a video about that and going over the V3X. But I started this video intending to show why I think the V3X is actually a superior bow to the Phase 4, and I've ended up talking about the Elite Envision as usual, because as much as I loved this bow when I first got it, this bow, there's just things lacking from this bow to make it a truly great bow for me. And I think the biggest thing is going to be draw cycle for me. I I'm super picky about my draw cycle, and that's why I've got two Mathews here in front of me, and I'm probably going to buy another Mathews in the future. My next hunting bow, it's very likely going to be a Mathews, unless somebody wants to sponsor me and give me a free bow. I'm not opposed to that if it's a good bow. I don't mind give a bow and promoting a product that I believe in. But with 60 subscribers, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, so I'm not too worried about that. But I'll probably go back with the Mathews and probably be a 29 and a half. I know there are still two new V3Xs right now that I could go get my hands on and get them for $1,000. Not buying both, just buying one. But I know I could go get that today. I'm just considering the benefits of having 3 bows as opposed to 2, because then we're talking about a whole host of other things. You've got to buy arrows unless you're going to shoot the same arrow out of each one, which in all reality, I would very likely just shoot these, the Victory Rips, out of my hunting bow at this point, because I like them, they fly good, and they're pretty light, 440 grains, or just under 440, 450, 55 with a lighted nock, which is how I will shoot them in hunting season. So go ahead and let me know in the comments what your opinions are if you shot both the Phase 4 and the V3X. Do you think that the V3X is a better bow, or do you think the Phase 4 is a better bow? And I'm not taking anything away from anyone that's got either one. I have both. I love both. I don't want to get rid of either one of them. They're great bows. They really are. So I just want your guys' opinion on which bow you think is better. I've given you mine. I want to hear yours. And if you have an opinion on maybe a shorter axle-to-axle bow, if you're a longer draw length, 29 and a half, 30 plus, if there is a shorter axle-to-axle hunting bow that you would recommend me look at. So I know that's kind of a strange thing to say maybe, but like I said, when you get into these a little bit longer draw lengths, and especially once you get over 30, it's just about impossible to find a short axle bow that will go to your draw length, much less feel good at your draw length. So take that with a grain of salt if you so desire. It will not hurt my feelings if you disregard everything that I have said in this video, or anything I've ever said about the draw lengths. I know there was a comment on one of my videos that said 30 inches of draw length was a pretty common number. And while I would agree that it is common, it's much more common to see someone with a 28 and a half inch than a 30 inch. And that's why I say it is a little bit on the longer side. Same thing with 29 and a half, unless you're in a particular part of the world or the country where people just have a little bit longer arms or are a little bit taller, so they have to have they have 31 inch draw lengths or something because everybody's 6'5". But I myself am just under 6 foot, and I shoot a 30 inch, 29 and a half inch draw length. Never shot anything really. I shot 29 and a quarter for a while, so never shot anything under that, and never shot anything over 30 inches. I mean, I've test fired bows at 30 and a half and 31 inches, but that was not, that's completely different. Completely different bows when you increase the draw length or decrease the draw length. You increase or decrease the poundage. Any type of hump or any little bit of resistance gets magnified. Just something to keep in mind when you're shooting a bow. If your bow shop will, ask them to change the draw length to fit you, and ask them to set the let off to fit you as well. So I've kind of gone on a little bit longer than I intended to at the beginning of this video, and I apologize for that, but I really hope that each and every one of you has got something from this video. I know I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert at archery, but I hope that I can give you something to help you become a better archer. So that being said, I'm going to cut it off right here. So everybody, please stay safe, stay in the outdoors. God bless you, and I will catch you on the next one.